Hello, everybody. This is Ahmed, and this is the Breakout Podcast here at the School of Advanced Studies, SAS IT. And today we are starting our second season, and this time I have Aleksey Lysenko. He is the SAS IT major leader, and we are gonna discuss today this hype. We're gonna discuss too many things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
Right. So I'm really actually glad that finally you came from Rostov.
indeed, indeed. That was a quest on its own.
Yeah.
That's true.
And now we see you in flesh.
Yeah,
Yes.
not in a very good shape, as you can hear me, but I hope it's gonna work out.
It's gonna work out. Just having
you.
you is just a blast.
Let's. I'm trying to imagine that I have a little, sexy growly voice.
Yeah.
I hope it is, or maybe just growly. Okay, never mind.
Right. We are gonna try to touch upon three things, right? The hype of this. I don't know if it's the hype or the trigger right now of having these innovations in technology like the AI or whatever other tools that we are having and their effect on education. But we will also discuss the creativity, not only the creativity of students, but also the creativity of human beings that it cannot be replaced, right? And I would like to start from the very beginning. Are you really? I mean, right now, everybody is very worried about. For example, this. Okay, let's start. Let's just address the elephant in the room, the ChatGPT thing, right?
I would say that this is particularly, as far as I can see, an elephant in this particular room. I mean, yeah, because as you mentioned, yeah, there is a lot of anxiety. But the thing is that I think the whole kind of hype about artificial intelligence in general has been there for years. Yesterday I was sitting there and thinking that I think I was like giving speeches on the dangers of artificial intelligence for like almost a decade already, and they were like public speeches, and like all the time I was saying like, we are not there yet. To be honest, I don't know how many more years I can keep saying we're not there yet, because every time, I mean, when I talk about AI and like how people are scared, how people are confused, like, is AI gonna take our jobs? Is AI gonna be, I don't know, destructive towards humans? Is something gonna happen? And they are like feasible stuff. I mean, the robotics, not to say AI from a creative perspective, but just from a perspective of robotics, it has been constantly taking people's jobs. So this is, this type of robotic apocalypse that actually not like Terminators with lasers, but just normal robots that are simply taking your jobs. And there are a lot of stuff happening in this department from year to year. And I mean, decades, these things are happening. The problem is that if you look on this, kind of a curve of how automatization generally is taking, what people are used to do, is traditionally, this middle of the curve it's what is under danger. So, for instance, the low quality work, like, I don't know, let's say janitors, are not that endangered by robots, for instance, because it is too expensive to replace them with robotics, and it requires too many of little specifications and that. But for instance, if you are an accountant, there is a lot more danger, because the automation, the artificial intelligence, other type of automation can do these things faster, cheaper than you as an accountant. So, I mean, a lot of accountants can and will be losing their jobs. But then we have this other almost infinite part of this equation, which goes to like creativity, which says that creative people are the less endangered species, if you can say. And kind of the creativity, the AI is not there yet. But on the other hand, for just past year, we have seen a lot of, kind of a game-changing things. And it has been there for a while, because I think like in 2015, there was this first thing where AI started to detect things on pictures. So I'm not quite sure who was the author of this stuff, but basically there was like image to text, where you can just feed the picture to artificial intelligence, and it would say, yeah, these are the people playing volleyball, this is the ball, this is the beach, these are the people, and it basically can generate text describing what it sees on the picture. And at that point, some people were thinking, like, what if we flip these things? Can we, for instance, just give some prompt and get the picture out of it? But now it's going further. It's not just, let's find the Google image by giving a text prompt. Like, let's generate the image. And it's going far beyond. Because I think a year and a half ago, right here, I was giving an open lecture on artificial intelligence. And the cover of my lecture was with these generated people, this algorithm, and they used like Facebook pictures of profiles, and basically they used it, they fed it to neural network and created a model which generated like hundreds and thousands of people who actually do not exist. They're just faces, normal faces, and my cover was, put up out of these faces. Like I think people still probably wonder why there were some weird people on the cover, but basically that was the design of the neural network, and that was a year and a half ago or something like that. Now we have things like Midjourney, things like DALL-E, which actually kind of can generate images out of text, and it was not that long when we had this quantum leap.
How do you see us adapting or integrating these technologies into education, and then innovating in our ways of delivery, right? To simply get creative around the whole thing. As a professor, for example, you are going to start to give students much more different assignments. You are gonna change the way of delivering the course, or you think that it's not gonna affect anything. I mean, students will always attain their position is that of being the ones who are able to create only the text that they are submitting to you, only the project that they are submitting to you, the approach. It's just, this is the student kind of a thing. Or you are really worried about the idea of academic integrity, and you are like, oh my god, I need to ban everything that actually can be dangerous, and the students will use ChatGPT, and then they will get the answer to, and then I don't know whether it's a student's generated thing or not. How you are gonna integrate that from your point of view? I mean, and also, is it okay to compare Google, for example, with ChatGPT and the calculator thing, or they are different type of tools that we are actually using in order to help us get things around?
Well, that's actually, it's actually a pretty difficult question, to put it in simple words. The thing is that education is one of the most survivable construct of all. Yeah. I mean, for instance, the business, it should nowadays kind of move in a really short sprints, like 10 to 20 years. Education can move with sprints like 300 years and not change. But the problem is that education should change, and basically, we need to simply answer the question what education is for people who are going through this. And we can't say that, let's say, okay, at a certain point, algebra and calculus in general, let's just say calculus, was kind of an instrument of developing your analytical thinking skills. But there are more to it than calculus. And when originally calculators emerged, it was like a tool that seemed like cheating. Like, okay, you need to actually learn how to think, how to move those digits in your hand. Exactly. And now you're not doing it, you're just writing it down. But there is another problem. Calculators actually changed how we communicate and how we work in real life. For instance, no one is calculating in their head, I think, like at all, almost probably. I mean, calculators are there in your cell phone, in your device, in your Google spreadsheet, whatever you're calculating. More sophisticated stuff there than just calculator. Is it cheating? I guess no. And the other factor is that human brain is designed in such a way that we're also trying to find the most, I would say, lazy way, the most, sneaky way. It's just how we design in order to survive. Mm-hmm. The easiest way, the possible way, we are not trying to, actually overcome and endure, some difficulties. We are trying to figure out how we can skip those difficulties. And this is how original human being is designed, and this is how we survive. So the same goes for, I guess, how we, I don't know, just do work. And if we can do the same thing with less effort, then it's great. So what is it that we teaching people, students, kids at schools? We're teaching them how real world is, working, or we're teaching them how to develop analytical thinking skills. I mean, are there any other ways to develop analytical thinking rather than just moving digits in your head and pretend to be way, blah, blah, blah? Or is it okay to learn how to work with a calculator because this is what you're going to be working with in your day-to-day life? Now, so the real question is how these tools are changing the life itself, as we know. How big the game changer it is. As a calculator, as more sophisticated tools, for instance, yeah, you can say that. I mean, I don't know, let's say accountant. For some reason, I'm terribly sorry for all the accountants that I use this particular example.
So what's the vulnerable
no necessarily hate towards accountants, but still, I don't know, it just came up out of my mind. So let's say at a certain point, yeah, accountants were like, they were really good at calculus, at calculating different stuff, and this is probably what they were learning. But at a certain point, we had a lot more sophisticated software. And at a certain point, the more, professional accountants would be those guys who actually know how to work with this sophisticated software. Now, can we keep saying that, no, this is blasphemy. We shouldn't be using this in education. Or should we adapt to this as education in order to make people successful, in order to make people, just be able to find themselves in this unpredictable, difficult world? And I think this is kind of the major purpose of education, to help people understand who they are and who they can be in this world. Basically give them, the perspective on this world. And we simply cannot ignore this. I mean, we can say ChatGPT is not allowed in academia because this can possibly help you write an essay or generate it for you. But let's say 20 years ago, what would you say? We should ban Google because people can look up something on Google and they will not go to library. I remember when I was studying at the university that cell phones were banned because you can use your cell phone to just Google, find something, anything like that. I caught up this development because when I was at school, I think I remember a couple of guys were having cell phones, and I was like, oh my, cell phones, so cool, they can make a photo or something like that. Then when I was at the university, a lot more smartphones appeared where they can connect to the internet, they can use this stuff. And when I was studying, it was developing on the go, and it was extremely prohibited. You can cheat using smartphones. Now, can you ban smartphone? I remember this thing happening. It was crazy. If you go to exam, you just need to leave your smartphones in a box. Now, it sounds really bizarre right now, to ask somebody. And I think the worst thing about it is that it's kind of against human nature. You have this progress, you have this artificial technology designed by man that is supposed to help people be better and more efficient. Integrate it somehow, don't ban it. And all the time when people in academia were trying to ban something, eventually they came up, figuring out that, okay, we can't ban people for coming with smartphones. We can't ban people for coming with laptops. We can't ban people for using calculator. It is okay to use calculator. It is okay to Google. So yeah, we're on the brink of a next step on artificial intelligence that can generate stuff for us. Can generate pictures, can generate texts, can answer sophisticated questions. People at Google are actually really worried right now because of the ChatGPT, because they think that ChatGPT can actually make Google obsolete. And Google was dominating the internet for I don't know how many years. And now people can say why should I Google something that will give me Wikipedia or anything else where I can read about it, but then figure out that maybe it's not something that I meant. Maybe I need to reformulate my input. Maybe I need to change it, or go search for a couple of pages and make a little bit of research. And all of a sudden it seems like it's normal research in a way. Yeah. But now you say let's go to ChatGPT and just ask it a sophisticated question, and it will give me a sophisticated answer to my question without me even Googling, even finding any materials. Like, why do I even need those materials if I can just get elaborate answer to my sophisticated question? And that might work even more effective than Googling. So yeah, is it a problem? Is it like a next step in our evolution, in a way, in evolution of society, of how we work? I would bet on evolution. I would say that we we definitely do not need to have this, mindset where we kind of need to figure out how to, survey this, how to, figure out if somebody's using it to cheat. I mean, yeah, a normal person is having, and not just normal, but I would say effective person is having this hacker mindset. It is okay to talk about it in that way, I would say, because I'm working with a lot of startups recently, and I have noticed one thing, that people that run startups and basically are creating companies based on technology and innovation, they have a hacker-like mindset. Not just from a perspective of, coding and creating computer viruses, but from a perspective of like breaking things. Not because they are destructive by nature, but because generally they are trying, to kind of figure out how you can do stuff newly, better, more effective. And I would say this is kind of a disruption that is, inherently engineered in the DNA of startup. I mean, you have a good startup and you can have an awesome company if you disrupt something, if you disrupt the way how people live. Basically, ChatGPT, OpenAI is a startup in that sense. It's kind of a working towards disrupting our way of life. And yeah, we are discussing ChatGPT here because it has, kind of a get to that point where it starts to undermine the way of living, the way of how we used to live. Because one of the kind of a most recognizable currency in academic world right now is essays. I mean, if we teach our students to write essays here, then they need to write essays to get to any master program anywhere in the world. But now let's imagine that I don't have this type of education. Maybe I'm completely, technical education in the worst possible sense of meaning. I never wrote anything. I don't know how to write. I'm really poor at that, but I can use ChatGPT because I'm very well acquainted with technology, and this thing can write a perfect essay for me. And let's say I can go to Harvard and just present this essay as my own. Maybe it just helps me reformulate my thoughts on paper, because I cannot. And I actually don't have, a very good position on that. Like, is it bad or is it good?
But here is my take on that. So I totally agree with you on the fact that I think education, universities, and the schools and all of the educational institutions are on the brink of a moment to redefine themselves, and maybe not redefine, maybe try to even elaborate and reflect on what they are doing in general, and what is education for them, and how do you understand the education. Maybe it's on the policymaker levels, right? But also it can come down to the administration level of institutions and the universities and so on and so forth. So I totally agree with that, and I think that this is a very good thing, because this disruption that you are speaking about, the ChatGPT or any other type of AI and other tools and other simply variation of the AI, is simply helping us to reflect on how we do things, which is absolutely very good thing, and I'm a total fan of that. But what I'm a little bit afraid of here is that after the calculator, for example, and they are saying is that we right now try to know how to hack things, is that I don't have to think about what is 10 multiplied, I don't know, by whatever, right? And the calculator on my iPhone will just do that perfectly for me. The problem is that right now, when you go to on the TV and then you see this host of a program is interviewing a person who is called the human calculator, I'm afraid, I'm really really worried that at a certain time, maybe in 10 years from now, they will be. And so we look at this person, at this human calculator who knows how to do this stuff without using a calculator, using these mathematical equations and problems and all of that without using a calculator. They do it themselves by their own mind because they are trained to do that. and we look at them and as if it's like, wow, oh my god, how can this person do that? It's as if like it's an exotic thing. It's something that's outside of our realm of skills and the set of competencies. I am afraid that in 10 years from now, the host of the same program will interview a person who knows how to write, and then we will be like, oh my god, this person writes by himself. I mean, how are they able to do that? Oh my goodness, is that real? That this, and this person says, well, by the way, I wrote this essay yesterday, and then you will be sitting down, wow, really? Damn, how is that? How this is even possible that you write an essay by yourself? Or a novel by yourself. I actually, when I on my way to work today, I was listening to songs that were created purely by the AI, and they were so good. I mean, seriously, and I was so fascinated by that songs.
Art.
And sorry,
Art.
art, of course. Wow, like I mean, come on. I mean, I'm a huge fan of. I think it's Dali that does this. Is that you enter the prompt, and for example, Alexey on the moon. I don't know, with a cat in the same way Marlon Brando is cuddling a cat in The Godfather, and it will create it for you. I mean, I'm really really fascinated by that. But my fear is this point is that we will read in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we will be like sitting on YouTube, sitting, I don't know, in front of the TV, and then we have this person coming and saying, I know how to write by myself, and we're like, oh my god, this person writes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be bothered that much because we have a smaller example of this, which has nothing to do with the creativity, by the way, but with the just mechanical skills. For instance, like years ago, people were trained at schools how to write by hand.
Yeah.
And I mean, nowadays, how many times do you write by hand? I mean, how many students write by hand? I mean, a lot of all of us are typing. We're all in digital.
Except
and
for my classes.
Okay. My condolences. But the point is that like everyone is typing, and it's okay. Like, does that mean that we shouldn't be teaching people to write? I mean, yeah, you can argue that it has some sort of a motoric skills that kind of help, motor skills that, and all. But yeah, it's very arguable. I don't know whether some of these things are myths or maybe it will change our life in a way that it is actually okay to live with that. But we are actually stepping on a completely different territory, which has to do with the human's creativity. Yes. And I would say that we are on the brink of understanding what actually defines our creativity as humans. As I mentioned, like a year and a half ago, I was giving this lecture, and we would, on the QA session, we were discussing like, well, yeah, but you know what? Artificial intelligence is not how human brain works, blah, blah, blah. I was asked questions like, well, you understand that human can, draw its personal conclusions and blah, blah, blah. And now, a year and a half later, we are sitting and discussing that a computer is writing essays better than students in a way, and like they can use it in order to cheat, whatever. What about the artists? I mean, there is a whole community of artists that are against artificial intelligence because basically it's just stealing their work. People who were writing designs, they were, creators in a way, and now anybody can go to Midjourney, to their Discord server, just prompt anything, and boom, it creates awesome pictures because it collects all of this cumulative, data that was generated by years of artists. What does that actually mean to us? I think the problem is not that it's taking their work, because there are some flaws here and there. For instance, like fingers and hands. This is a big no-go for AI at this particular moment because I don't know, there are a couple of ideas why it can happen, because maybe the hands is something very difficult to actually paint, to draw, or like, for instance, okay, let me do like this and say people are very good at recognizing faces. If I would ask you, I don't know, I wouldn't see you for a year and ask you how I look like, and you would probably be able to describe me, like with a beard, with some features, my face. But if I would ask you how my hands look like, you probably never pay attention. And it's normal for people, like, okay, hands like hands, 5 fingers, everything like that. So probably this is one of the things why AI cannot quite generate hands, and there are really bad things happening there, like even creepy, they can give you nightmares. But it's for now. I mean, maybe in a year it will generate, everything would be really clear. And this is not the point. The point is that what is actually this spark that makes a person's creativity, makes a creator. And the answer is not very clear, to be honest. That's what to be scared of. Because, I mean, the creativity process is something out of experimentation and expertise, or like in terms of designers and artists, it's more about like visual references. Like I have been talking with my friend, a designer, about this, and he said like well, yeah, he create logos, he create art books and stuff like this for companies, whatever. And he said that in his opinion, the real designer, what he does, he's not moving pixels, he's actually bringing thoughts and senses to what he creates, which AI cannot do right now. I mean, it can replicate, but this is the same thing that artists do. They replicate, whether they understand it or not. They might think that this is, kind of, I had a dream last night, I saw this vision, I don't know, drew this vision, but it came from some of your experience. And there's actually the funny thing, the same goes for music. Like, and at a certain point, when you kind of learn how to do stuff, you experiment a little bit, and it can be, just random thing that can happen and can look beautiful or sound beautiful. Then you learn more, you kind of learn how these things sound, that things sound, and you kind of combine it, and your creative process is actually your expert, is your database in a way. The more that you can create kind of models, and okay, if you ask me to write music in a genre of rock and roll, I know all the patterns, that all the features that make rock and roll sounds like a rock and roll. That means that there is no original in creating rock and roll. I mean, I can't say how any time that I'm creating an original song in rock and roll, but probably I'm just rehashing and reusing some stuff that makes rock and roll sound like rock and roll. But it still would be original in a sense, because it's created by a person with certain like idea, sense that is transferred there, that is somehow interpreted by the audience, and this is what it's like. But from a technical perspective, writing music is, well, it doesn't have anything, and especially in terms of music, because I think the internet generally, when it came, I mean, we still remember how, I don't know, a couple of decades ago, people were monetizing, vinyl discs and whatever, and like super bands emerged, like they were super famous, but maybe because we didn't have that much of an internet, because we didn't hear, I mean, how many geniuses died there when nobody knew about them. And right now we are overwhelmed by artists and creators who create all of the different stuff. You go to Spotify, you find like tons of artists that look like this, look like, if sound like this, blah blah blah, etc. And I know whether it's good or bad, it's just opening our eyes on the creativity process. That it's not like, godlike spark or anything like this.
Please correct me if I'm mistaken, is that you are seeing right now the AI as just a competitor in the market. People will always have the choice whether to go to an AI generated thing or simply go to a human. I mean, it's just a new player in the market. I really hope to have this kind of reality where we are gonna have exhibitions in the museums where this is, for example, by the way, today we are gonna have an exhibition of the artist Dali, all right? And the Dali is is the creator or the artist of all of these generated artworks, all right? So I feel like maybe this is a good way of looking at the whole thing, and maybe this is how you also perceive things, or you perceive things as a way that, well, it will be there to help us do stuff, because it's not a little bit clear, because I really hope for the scenario that I'm saying is that I think that this is a good scenario for us in order to integrate simply the AI in becoming the players in the market, whether the simply education market, whether it's the book market or whatever, writing market, painting market, and so on and so forth, coding market as well. Or is it just it will become the calculator. It will become a tool that helps us do things. It will become Google. right? A tool that can help us do things, but we will still make things out of that, right? How do you see?
I'm actually betting on tool because you see, I mean, I cannot imagine a book written by ChatGPT, not because it's
You
not
can or you
capable.
can't? Sorry,
Can't.
can't.
Not because it is not capable, but because it actually requires an input and a very elaborate and sophisticated input. So, for instance, if I want to write a book using ChatGPT, I need to give a lot of various information, like in which style, in which manner, what, I don't know, specification. You see, artificial intelligence, neural networks specifically, they work on, well, let's put it simple, like feature-based analysis. So it's kind of a getting the features out of it. So in terms of art, like let's say you want to create a picture that is, I don't know, Star Wars in design of, I don't know, whatever, Claude Monet. And basically, it will create. It understands the features that makes Claude Monet picture. Claude Monet. It's kind of a signature style, and we know what Star Wars is, like lightsabers, I know, starfighters, whatever, X-wings. But I mean, it cannot imagine X-wings and lightsabers. Somebody needs to kind of feed this idea. What it actually does, it gives you the, I don't know, economy of time and resource in order to, actually create it. I mean, at certain point where, I don't know, George Lucas invented Star Wars, he kind of thought like, yeah, okay. And by the way, not to mention that's interesting, just crossed my mind. It was a combination of stuff on its own as well. So he thought like space, aliens, samurai, and Western.
Yeah.
So it kind of basically George Lucas worked like ChatGPT in a way, but he kind of combined all of this stuff. Okay, so we have like Western like duels but we just switch it for blaster pistols, and we have kind of a samurais that have their like way, and but they have lightsabers, and it's all happening in space because of the force, blah blah blah, and so. Yeah, it's a very cool franchise, but it is a combination of things that existed that were like shuffled and created. But I mean,
so what limits the AI of doing the same thing?
Because it cannot operate on its own. It doesn't have agency. So basically, you need to kind of imagine this thing, and it can give you multiple variations on how it might look like. Without you, it wouldn't be able to work. But George Lucas had to kind of work it. He had artists to write it, to create visual style. He had this lore to produce. But what if you can produce lore out of these keywords, inputs that you kind of design, and then it produces you some text, and you think, okay, that does make sense, but maybe not quite. We need to fix a little bit. So you can use it for drafting. Definitely. So I use it more as a tool. It doesn't have agency. It doesn't have a will to create something. And yes, so I would say that creative process is being somewhat diminished because maybe we give too much credit for creative process. Like, oh, it's genius, he has invented it. But then when you go deeper into things, you think that it's kind of a compile of stuff. We can ease this process. I wouldn't see it as a competitor in a way. So because like in what my friend designer told me, this is all about like what sense you put there, what thoughts you put there, not like how you implement it, because this is somewhat becoming obsolete. The same goes for art. Yeah, if we talk about market competitors, you might say that, I don't know, a year ago, if I would like to have some sort of a logo for my company or general design for whatever I do, maybe I do, t-shirts, and I want to create, let's say Star Wars topic, but in like death metal band-ish style, and I want to make this. I would go to a designer and I would explain that, what Star Wars looks like and what death metal bands look like. I want these things combined. Now I cannot go there because I can ask Midjourney to create this stuff because it can do better because it already knows all of the like death metal logos and Star Wars, what makes Star Wars Star Wars. And in fact, in a way, it's even better because human beings are not very good at defining features, and what actually makes us humans is that we make mistakes. We tend to forget some stuff. We tend to, kind of mismatch things. For instance, I know something about A and B, and I start to describe A, but all of a sudden my brain just switches and I start saying about B. And I could be very, good at basically lying to you, but I'm not lying because I just, I'm very confident in what I'm saying. But that's the point where this artificial intelligence things are kind of a pass in Turing test in a way, because Turing test, is how to make you believe that you are talking to human, and humans are very good at irrational thinking. Years before, we were trying to make artificial intelligence algorithm to be rational, very logical, and so on and so forth. But now we are on a brink of a situation where it does mistakes because it learns from people, because it learns from all of the mistakes that people have put on the internet. And therefore, it's even more human-like than we can imagine.
But how can you then, okay, if it's this is on the front line of creators and the people who work simply in professional spheres, how can you then boost the creativity of the students? How can you then reinforce them to simply look at the AI the same way you are looking, the same way your friend, the designer, looks at the AI? Is that it's something there, okay, it is just there, but it cannot cancel me. All right, I will have to do the work myself. How can you boost to the students here agency? I like so much that you said that the AI doesn't have the agency, right? But the students have, right? The creators have, because that's their work, right? They need to generate their own ideas and act on the certain decisions and think about certain things and so on and so forth, right? But they do that because they have something like. Simply they do that for a living. They do that because that's who they are. But with the students, it's a little bit different because they have different motivations. So how can you then boost or even reinforce the students' creativity in this regard?
Well, that's not easy to ask, but I would say that I have mentioned that, like essays, for instance, it's a currency in academic world. But maybe we're focusing on something a little bit different, because what is essay? It's a produced text, right? And we spend too much time of giving people the courses on academic writing, where we focus on very mechanical things of how to produce an essay, how to produce a text, how to work with this clause, this paragraph, and so on and so forth. Now, does this particular mechanical work differ much from, like working in factory and just moving, cardboard boxes from one place to another? But all of a sudden, then Henry Ford appears and says, I have a conveyor and you're not needed anymore because we can automatize this work. Now, this is a mechanical work, basically. You are just given okay, just put this thought into words. Now, what is original there is the thought. So I think this is just the way how we need to approach essay. So we do not need to assess it based on how it is written. Like if this thought is well produced or not very well produced, because you can definitely use, things like ChatGPT in order to produce text better. The issue is that you need to find the way to produce original thoughts. And this is definitely something that things like ChatGPT are not able to do. Mm-hmm. It might seem like this, but there's a catch, because we tend to think about some stuff that we are doing like it's original thought. And this is a vice that, any professor can be caught in. Like say, I have read hundreds of books on, let's say social studies. I know a lot about social studies, and I know how to produce a good thought about it. But maybe this is not very original. This is just a very good and clever compilation of things like ChatGPT is capable of. But then what are we actually teaching students? We're teaching them to think. We're working with their minds. And this is basically of how they put it into words. Putting into words is a skill. It's not a thought. It's not a mindset. So basically, I would say, I do not know quite how exactly, but we need to change the way we assess it. Because, as I mentioned before, right, essay is a currency. No, it's not. It's as much currency as, value in a dollar bill. Not the dollar bills are of value, but what stands behind the dollar bill, right, for instance. The same goes for essay. The essay itself is not a currency. Currency is the ideas put into this essay, this originality, this kind of a spark. And this is a lot more difficult than just writing an essay.
But I think that it requires really a lot of humility that the teacher should cultivate. So, for example, is that I think that there is supposed to be a rise of a new culture of embracing these original thoughts. For example, if you are teaching a course on any subject, and then the student comes with an idea that it's original, that it's a new way of looking at things, based on the stuff that the student studied in your course. The problem is that most of the time that the academics tend to suppress such things. They say, don't do that. I asked you to summarize these two texts. I asked you to analyze both of them. You are a student. You cannot originate kind of new ideas of thought-provoking models or analysis of a situation. And I think about ChatGPT here is that it might be not only disrupting the way we do education, but also disrupting the way we even deal with this with the work of the students as well, and the way we assess students' thought, because we hear this all over the time, all over the place, about the fact that, oh my god, we need to empower students and we need to listen to their original thoughts and all of that. But when it comes down to the essay, right, we never allow students to actually look at things in different ways. And I think that ChatGPT is helping simply reflect on how we are assessing students' thought.
I think we simply should not forget why in the first place we are dealing with education. What is the purpose of education? And I mean, I'm pretty confident that there is a lot of conservatism there. Like we have been doing for hundreds of years, we have been writing essays where we give multiple of texts and give the assignment for students to analyze them. To what end? And I can bet my money that not all of the professors will be able to answer this question. I mean, there might be brilliant professors and so on, but they will probably stuck with this question. Because our forefathers were doing that, academia traditionally for hundreds of years were writing essays. But what if the world has changed? What if now it undermines the value of this text? What is it then there? I mean, why do we traditionally ask people to write text? We need to kind of remember that, figure it out. I might not probably have the right answer myself, but we actually need to think about it. And we need to kind of really define what is it there. I mean, probably we don't need to ask people to write two texts and then combine them in some sort of an analytical compilation to give our thoughts on what do we see here and there, because it is easily hacked. And while it is hacked, then, what mechanical skill are we teaching there? I don't know. But what is it that we're actually teaching students? So maybe it's not that. So I would say that essays do not lose their value. We just need to actually understand where the value of essay lies. What is it that is valuable in essay? Not just the produced text.
I see. And I think actually that this is we finalize our thoughts here and our talk by saying that this is it's a moment of being emancipated from the mechanics, from the mechanical type of thinking, right? Is that augmentation, right?
In a way.
Yes. So that is a very good thing, actually, Alexey. I'm really happy that I had you on the podcast today. I know that we can actually we can have the discussion. I don't know, it's like all day we can speak about things, but unfortunately we have our time limited, right? We see that, but thank you so much for coming in today. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And so this was our discussion on simply all of this hype about ChatGPT. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, comments, suggestions, so on and so forth, please leave a comment and we will be happy to reply to you, as well as subscribe, like, and share. We totally appreciate your support, and see you.